Greetings and welcome to all of you. Welcome to session 55. I was going to say 65. Session 55 on the Gospel of John. I'm Pastor Timothy Muse, lead pastor here at St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Alliance, Ohio, and it's a joy. I'm a privilege to be with you today. Thank you for making this part of your weekly journey. Welcome back. I know we didn't have a session last week. I was away on vacation. And so I figured rather than try to press a session forward and really kind of string it out, I figured I'd come back fresh. So we took a break last week, took a week off. Now we're back. Now we're ready to jump into kind of the final portion of the Gospel of John here. So if this is your first time with us, then welcome. Welcome to this process. Welcome to this study. As I said, this is session 55, so we've been here over a year now. So I would certainly encourage you to go back and check out the previous sessions, check out the previous things that we've been doing. We've been walking through the book from the very beginning up to this point. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to stop listening today. Please keep on listening, keep on paying attention and following through. But it does mean that as you move forward, as you look, as you finish up, if you find that this was helpful for you today, I'd encourage you to go back and listen to the previous, because all of this builds up. This isn't unlike the book of Proverbs. We spent a lot of time in the book of Proverbs over the past couple of years, and there's some overlap and there's some repetition and the such, and some increase. But the Gospel of John, the Gospels in general, these are build-up stories to something great and climatic, and that's what we're at. We're at the climax here. We're at the pinnacle point of the story, and this is a great story. It will stand alone. All right. So please know that what you're going to hear today will stand alone, but it will have even far more meaning as you build it up and understand it, moving forward. So definitely I would encourage you to go back and listen as you get an opportunity. If you've been following along, and welcome back. Thanks for being part of this session. It's a great opportunity to continue to walk through this book and this amazing story of our redemption in Christ Jesus. So I would encourage you to have a Bible open before you, if you can. If you're listening to this, and doing something else, if you're listening to this while you're, driving or working out or what have you, and it's just not feasible to have a Bible open, I get it. I really do. And I'm just thankful that I'm part of whatever routine you have. But if you can have a Bible open before you, I would encourage you to do that so that you can follow along, so that you can literally see the words and hear the words as I'm reading through them. One of the things I think that we really struggle with as a people, as a faith base, is not really truly knowing what the scriptures say. We might think we know, and a lot of things we get a little, kind of colloquial or kitschy, that really aren't in the Bible. I mean, a lot of times Ben Franklin is quoted as being in the Bible because it's a quote that's supposed to be in the Bible, but it's actually Ben Franklin. So it's important for us to know. It's important for us to really read the Word and hone in and be able to put, a verse, a text, a chapter and verse to these different items and circumstances. So I definitely would encourage you to have a Bible open before you, follow along in the Bible, follow along in what we're talking about in the work that we're doing. It's really important to be able to identify everything that's taken place. So that's definitely the case. I definitely encourage you to have a Bible open and follow along. And if you're getting something out of these sessions, if this Bible study means something to you, then I would definitely encourage you to share it. I'm not sure how you connected to it, but ultimately it winds up to my YouTube page. So share this out there on your social media. Share it out there. If you're getting connected to it through one of the church's posts, through our Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, then retweet it or like it or share it, or however the platform works that you're on there. Get it out there so that others can and will follow along. That is the best way to do this. That's the best way to get the Word of God into the hands of others. And we live in a world and a time that is unprecedented. And I know when we moved through COVID, we kind of heard that word all the time. It's unprecedented time. And that was kind of a negative. That was kind of a, groundbreaking new normal. But we live in a time that really, truly is unprecedented in that, one, we are free to proclaim the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, without fear of repercussion. we can speak the gospel of grace without fear of being arrested or without fear of being jailed or silenced or even executed. A lot of our brothers and sisters around the world, they continue to proclaim the gospel, even though they could be executed for their words, for their proclamation. We live in a world and a time where that's not part of our fear. And I know there are going to be those who are like, well, someday it's coming. Well, maybe it will, but that day is not today. You are not in a place right now where you have to worry about proclaiming the gospel. You're not. I'll just put it out there. So that's the first thing I'd say. The second thing I would say is that we have these platforms that you're listening to. I mean, you're listening to this through YouTube, and YouTube has some like 40 million channels or 400 million channels. I forget what number it is right now that YouTube has, but it's pretty amazing. Actually, for the sake of accuracy, I just decided to Google it. And according to Google, YouTube has more than 114 million channels. 114 million channels. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute. So that's 114 million different expressions being put out on YouTube. This is one of them. And of these expressions, there are probably 20 times more subscribers following along. So the availability of this information freely given, with a couple of simple clicks, you can share this out to hundreds, thousands of people. That's the matrix of Facebook. I mean, how many friends do you have? So, if you shared this post on Facebook, if you shared the church's post on Facebook, then every one of your friends, it shows up. And then if one of them shares it, then it shows up again and again and again, exponentially. That is the power of social media. That is what social media brings us. And so with that power in hand, we see the capability of bringing these words out there. So if this Bible study has any kind of significance to you, I would encourage you to share it. Even if it doesn't, as a member of a faith community, even if what we do as a church isn't connecting the individual, well, this is not a buffet, okay? We are not a pizza buffet where you can just get to pick what you want and leave the rest. We're a faith community, and as a faith community, everything that we do affects all of us. So if you're in the faith community, if you're part of the church, and this comes across your social media, I would encourage you to share it because it's part of the responsibility. It's part of the work that we do. So share it out there. And post it. If you want to DM it to someone or email it or message it to someone, please do that. Do that so that others will know it and see it and experience it. So I would definitely encourage you to share it out there. Share this information out there. Get this information out there so that others can experience it. It is the primary mission of the church is to proclaim the word, and we are in this unprecedented time when we can do it by merely clicking a button. I want you to think about where Paul was at. When Paul did his thing, Paul had to travel for miles, boat and donkey and in prison and all this kind of stuff just to get where he wanted to go, just to get where he needed to go, to be able to proclaim the gospel. And here we are. We can do this, from the middle of our living room. You could be doing this 2 o'clock in the morning, and you never have to look at anybody. This is the unprecedented nature of the time that we live in. So I definitely encourage you to share it out there. If you're getting any kind of meaning out of this, then share it out there. Get it out there so that others can experience what we do. Others can experience the power of what we have. All right, so we're going to be jumping in here. We're going to be jumping into the work of the gospel. We're going to be jumping into the work of John. We're in chapter 20. Of the Gospel of John. Chapter 20 is a very important chapter. Where we left off with Jesus being laid in the tomb. Okay, so where we stopped at that pivotal moment. Jesus cried out, he breathed his last, he went on into death. Again, I want to remind everybody that Jesus died. His death was dead. He was dead, dead, dead. Not just a little dead. Not just hanging out for a while. Not just really sleepy. He was dead. Dead, dead, dead. The pinnacle, the fulcrum of the Christian story is about Jesus dying. Like dying. Like dead, dying. I know you're probably thinking, jumping gee willikers, Pastor, we get it. He died. He was dead. He's not coming back. Well, but it's really important to emphasize this. It's really important to emphasize that Jesus died. Because if we don't emphasize that, then we could fall into the idea that maybe he was just really, really sleepy. Maybe, God put him into some kind of homeostasis, of some kind of, of deep sleep. And there are cultures, there are actually medicines around the world that can put someone in a deep sleep. That is not what happened here, okay? We need to make sure that we're clear about that. That is not what happened here. Jesus didn't go into some kind of deep sleep. Jesus died. He died and was laid in the tomb, period. That's it, all right? We need to express that. We need to accept that fully for what it is if anything moving forward is going to have any kind of meaning. So when we left off with Jesus being laid in the tomb. Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus both come along, take the body down off the cross, and they lay it in the tomb, for it's the day of preparation for the Passover, really important time. So Jesus is being laid in the tomb, and then what's going to happen is after the Passover, after the Sabbath, then things will happen. Things will take place. So this was kind of a, let's just get him taken care of for now, and then we'll come back and take care of things later. And that's where we pick up. That's where we pick up with chapter 20. Here we go. This is chapter 20, verse 1. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the tomb. So she ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, and said to them, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him." Then Peter and the other disciple set out and went towards the tomb. The two were running together, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent down and looked in, saw the linen wrappings lying there, but did not go in. Then Simon Peter came, following him, and went into the tomb. He saw the linen wrappings lying there, and the cloth that had been on Jesus' head not lying with the linen wrappings, but rolled up in a place by itself. Then the other disciple who reached the tomb first also went in, and he saw and believed, for as yet they did not understand the Scriptures, that he must rise from the dead. Then the disciples returned to their homes. All right, so there it is. There is the pinnacle moment. This is it. This is the beginning, the new beginning. We want to go back to verse 1 because we think in linear terms where everything starts at the beginning and just kind of moves forward. Well, the earthly ministry of Jesus moved forward from chapter 1, verse 1, all the way up till the end of chapter 19. But this is a new beginning. That's what resurrection is. It is a new start. So early on the first day of the week, this would be Sunday. Now, if you look at any Roman calendar, which is most of the calendars we have are Roman in nature, they start on Sunday. Sunday is the first day of the week. Sunday is the beginning of the week. So when we talk about Sabbath, when we talk about the Sabbath, the seventh day, that's Saturday. So our Jewish brothers and sisters, when they look at Sabbath, they look at Saturday. So it's really sundown Friday night to sundown Saturday night. So the day begins at sundown. So it's sundown Friday night to sundown Saturday night is the Sabbath. So first day of the week, Sunday, is just, it's a work day. It's time to go back to work. So the Jews crucified Jesus. He died on Friday, and on the third day, so Friday into Saturday. So Friday's day 1. He's dead on Friday. Saturday's day 2, and then into Sunday is day 3. All right. Significant in that you can't hold your breath and hang out for 3 days. You can do that for a couple hours, but not for 3 days. That's why it was a 3-day process, so that it is clear that Jesus actually was dead and in the tomb longer than anyone could hold out. This was a physical death. And early on the first day of the week, before dawn. Now, understand this. If it's sundown to sundown, it is the first day of the week. It is Sunday, even though it is not dawn yet. We work on the 12-hour or the 24-hour calendar, so we say that a day starts at midnight, goes till midnight. Well, in the Jewish calendar, it wasn't quite the same. A day started at sundown and went till sundown. All right, that's how it worked. But anyway, so early on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the tomb. Now, so obviously, a couple of things. I mean, why Mary Magdalene went to the tomb is unclear. In the other Gospels, it talks about, the women going to the tomb to carry spices, to prepare the body. We don't get any of that in John. John's not talking about that. And initially, all we get is Mary Magdalene. She's the only one there. Nobody else. None of the other women. Now, Mary Magdalene does speak in plural. We do not know where they've taken him, where they've laid him. But initially, it's all about her, she. So she's there by herself, probably to mourn, probably to grieve. So, the indication really is that this is Jesus' final resting place. He's going to die here. He's dead. He's going to decay here, and this is going to be it. So she's going to this place, seeing it as a place of death, a place of weeping, a place of grief. And even when all things point beyond it, her sensibility still overruns everything else. And I think this is definitely where we as believers, even modern day, struggle, is we struggle with the capability of God beyond our own belief structure or possibility. We want to say that only what we believe is possible with God, because that's how our faith is limited more by scarcity than abundance, more by fear than by opportunity. So Mary is looking at this, and Mary sees all these things. For one thing, the stone is rolled away. Okay? The stone is rolled away. So this is going to take effort. I mean, these things are not supposed to be easy. They're supposed to be big and difficult. So the stone is rolled away. So she went, the tomb, and saw the stone was rolled away. The stone had been removed from the tomb. Okay, so it was open. All right. This would have been really, kind of a desecration of the dead. And this would have been really something icky. To see the tomb empty, to open like that is just, it's awful, And Mary freaks. I mean, she does. She freaks out. It doesn't say anything. So it says, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the tomb. So she ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved. All right, so Mary sees that the stone is rolled away. It gives nothing about her looking inside. All right, so she's assuming that because she's making a conclusion that because the stone is rolled away, something nefarious has happened and Jesus' body is gone. All right. Now, this is one, and now keep in mind, Mary had been walking with Jesus a long time. She had heard these predictions. She knew what the Bible said. She is working under the impression that Jesus' body was stolen, that it was taken away, that it is gone, and it's not locatable. And she's basing this assumption on the fact that the stone had been rolled away. That is what she's basing her assumption on, nothing else. It doesn't say that she looked in. It doesn't say that she saw the linen wrappings. It doesn't even say that she didn't see the body. She just sees the stone rolled away. And she believes that the body had been taken. So she runs to Simon Peter and the disciple whom Jesus loved. That one would be John. That would be the one that was standing at the base of the cross when Jesus said, "Woman, here's your son. Son, here's your mother." So this is John. All right. If you look at a picture of the Last Supper that's painted by Leonardo da Vinci, there's a point where. So if you look at a picture of Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper, when you're looking at Jesus, and Jesus is depicted in a red robe with a blue sash or a blue over his left shoulder, to his immediate right is who we know as John. And that is John, the younger son of Zebedee, James and John. And there's a great deal of affinity between John and Jesus. And Da Vinci paints that in the obverse, because John is wearing a blue robe with a red sash. And there's very much a connectivity between these two, unlike any other of the disciples in the painting. So this is this is John, who would be the author of the Gospel of John, or attributed to the author of the Gospel of John, but he would be the one to whom is running with Peter. And younger, so it's a foot race to the tomb, and he beats Peter there because Peter's older, and we understand Peter to be kind of more of a big guy brawler. He's a fisherman. Built, stocky, but probably not much of a runner. So Peter and John get to the tomb. And when they get to the tomb, John gets there first. He bent down and looked in and saw the linen wrappings lying there, but he did not go in. So John is the first to confirm that the body is not there by looking in, but he doesn't go into the tomb. But notice what it says. It says that the linen wrappings were lying there. So the body is wrapped. All right. And that's how it works. I mean, a body is wrapped. If someone was going to rebury a body, they wouldn't leave the wrappings. They would, they would take the wrappings because they would want the body to be wrapped. I mean, why would you unwrap something just to wrap it another time, 10 minutes later when you find it in another tomb? And it's not a stretch to think that someone would steal the body or move the body. Remember, this is a new tomb in a garden that no one has ever been laid before. And we don't get any indication. Now, other texts talk about this tomb being Joseph of Arimathea's. But, I mean, it's a tomb. It's there, and they use it. So it could be that, hey, there's a dead body squatting in my tomb, so I've come to move it. But they wouldn't remove the wrappings. And if it was a grave robber, the wrappings would be strewn all over the place. The linens would have been strewn all over the place. They would have just discarded everything together. So John peers in, sees that the body's gone, sees that the linen wrapping is lying there. So he's the first to confirm Mary Magdalene's suspicion, at least that the body is gone. But notice there's no intonation about where the body is at. John makes no statement. He just looks in. Well, then Peter shows up, and he goes into the tomb. Peter then actually enters into the place of the dead, which would make him ritually unclean. And this is just not a good thing to do if you want to go to temple or synagogue. But Peter doesn't care. Peter is very emotional. He's driven by his emotion. He's driven by his heart more than his head. So he goes in. He goes in and looks. He literally goes into the tomb. Now, when he goes into the tomb, we get a little bit more of a vision. And so when he goes into the tomb, he saw the linen wrappings lying there. He saw what John saw, but we get more information. And the cloth that had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen wrappings, but rolled up in a place by itself. We're getting the image of tenderness and care here. It's as if, when you get out of bed in the morning, you don't yank all the covers off and throw them all over the room and rip them to shreds. No, I mean, you get out of bed and then ultimately you make the bed and you cover everything up and you make it nice and neat. So this is an indication that Jesus didn't, that there's no struggle here. That there's time and there's intention, and Jesus did what, that there was grace here. All right. So stealing a body, relocating a body, those things start to fall away when all of the clues are brought together. All the clues are brought together. Everything starts to fall away, but something more. And they're starting to realize that, they're starting to realize that things will, they're starting to realize that this isn't a grave robbery or a relocation. This is something more. There's something deeper here going on. So then Peter goes in, then the other disciple who reached the tomb first also goes in. He saw and believed. And believed. They saw the linen wrappings and they believed. They believed that something powerful, something important was happening here. They believed that God was doing something here. So their witness, their belief is based on seeing that there's no body, the tomb is empty, and that the linen wrappings that should either be gone with the body in another tomb or strewn all over the place in a grave robbering situation, including running out the door, that they're all folded up and rolled up and put together in kindness and gentleness and tenderness. This is a very different reality. This is a very different reality than that of something criminal, nefarious, or negative. And that's a really important thing for us to grasp. And again, Peter and John, they look in, they see these things, and they believe. for yet they did not understand the scriptures that he must rise from the dead. Then the disciples returned to their homes. So they didn't fully grasp, and in a lot of ways, I mean, who could fully grasp what Jesus is saying, hey, I'm going to die and rise from the dead, until it actually happens? Because this never happened before. I mean, you can talk about doing whatever, but it's until you do it that's where the rubber really hits the road. So they finally see that the body is empty, but all signs indicate that Jesus walked out of the tomb himself. That there was nobody taking or robbing or stealing, but that Jesus came out of the tomb himself. That God is moving in a direction that God said he was going to move in, but it's really kind of hard to grasp until you actually see it happen. Peter and John, they see this, they see this sight, and they have this radical acceptance that something bigger than nefariousness happened here, that something bigger than themselves, that something God happened here. At least it's more God than bad guy. They're walking away believing. So it says the other disciple, this will be John who reached the tomb first, also went in, and he saw and believed. For as yet they did not understand the scriptures that he must rise from the dead. Then the disciples returned to their homes. So they believed. They believed based on seeing the empty tomb. The empty tomb is what drove them into the hands of belief. It drove them into the hands of acceptance of what Jesus had been telling them prior to. So they left. But that doesn't leave the tomb empty. All right? That doesn't leave the tomb empty. So Peter and John go to the tomb. They look in. They see the linen wrappings. They see everything there. They know something happened, but they don't know what. They're still unclear. They believe that God moved somehow, but they're just not clear about the details yet. All right. So verse 11. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. As she wept, she bent over to look in the tomb and saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had been laying, one at the head, one at the feet. They said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They have taken my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." When she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for?" Supposing him to be the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will carry him away." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned and said to him in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, because I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord." And she told them she told them that he said these things to her. Sorry. Sometimes John can get a little cumbersome in translation, so my apologies for that. So Peter and John leave the tomb. They go back home. Belief, confusion, not sure. And then here's Mary Magdalene. Now she's left at the tomb. Now here's the thing. We don't want to get into Mary's weeping. She's a weak woman. The disciples were strong men. What we need to understand is in the culture, men didn't cry publicly like this. Men didn't weep. They wept privately. They wept in the privacy of their own homes. They didn't cry publicly. A woman, she could cry publicly all she wants. She could weep all she wants. But a man couldn't. A man wasn't supposed to cry publicly. So, with that being the case, it was indicative upon whatever emotions that Peter and John were having, they needed to deal with it quietly, privately, at home, in the sanctity of their own place. Whereas whereas Mary Magdalene, she could do whatever, she could cry, she could be whoever she wanted to be, because no one was going to pay her any regard. No one was going to care one way or another. All right? No one was going to care that she was weeping outside the tomb. No one was really going to even pay attention. And that's kind of the thing. And I know that sounds, that sounds patriarchal, blah, 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 but it is true that no one is really going to pay her any kind of mind. And that's just how it works. I mean, that's just how things worked out. So she's there weeping. She looks in. Now, remember, John looked in and saw the linen wrappings. Peter looks in, sees the linen wrappings and the wrapping around the head. So that's the next step for, the next step is that Mary looks in and she not only sees the wrappings, but she sees more. So Mary sees the two angels in white. One at the head, one at the feet, one at the ground, one at heaven. So these are the visitors. These are the messengers. These are the ones who have come to show her. Now, remember, she's the one who professed that they stole the body. Someone took the body. And she's still holding on to that. She's still walking with that, even though these are messengers from God. Angels in white. These are purity. This is a vision from God. They show up. And they're here for a very different message. So Mary, in her weeping, looks in. She sees the two angels sitting there, one at the head, one at the feet. And they say to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Why are you upset?" And her response is, "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." So she is still working under the assumption. She's still working under the impression that Jesus is dead and the tomb is empty because someone took the body. Now, this is a very logical assumption because up to this point, dead is dead. If you're dead, you're dead. That's it. There's no coming back. You don't get to come back from the grave. Dead is dead. And so she's working under the assumption that dead is dead. She's working under the assumption that Jesus had a great ride as a teacher, blah, blah, blah. He died on the cross. That's it. They put him in the ground, and someone has come to take him away. Her grief, her fear, and her tying to the world has, in fact, taken away her ability or covered her ability to see God doing anything more. Okay? And that's where she's at. So she's under the impression that they took the body. They've taken my Lord, and I don't know where he is. This is the same one that, is doing all these great God things, but they've taken my Lord, and I don't know where he is. I don't know where they've laid the body. That's what she says. So she says this to the angels, which ought to, in and of themselves, they should to be like, this is interesting. What, she doesn't. She immediately goes to, her grief moment, her pain. And then she doesn't even give, she doesn't even give the chance for the angels to respond. She's distracted, or she senses someone behind her. And she thinks that it's a gardener. Again, all of this is this clouded grief. And I'll tell you, I've worked with enough people over the years. I've worked with enough people who have grieved enough over the years to know that grief can very much cloud someone. They can cloud a vision. They can cloud a judgment. They can cloud an understanding. So she's grieving. She's hurting. Her master, her friend, and there are those who would argue that he's even more than that with Mary. She's hurting because he's dead. He's gone. And she misses him greatly. And remember, this is only like 36 hours old, 48 hours old, maybe, getting close to 72 hours old. So Mary is this is still very fresh, very raw. And Mary watched her friend, her teacher, her Lord, be beaten and executed, and now the body's gone. Now the last remnant of her of him is not to be found. There's not even a body. And, if you talk with people who, have suffered tragic losses, and there's no remains, they find places that, they find places of memorial, but even remains help bring about some closure, some identity, some place of mourning. So it seems like Mary's even robbed of that, robbed of her place of mourning, her, the body of her Lord, of her friend. And so she's grieving this. She tells this to the angels, but then she senses that there's something behind her, somebody behind her. So she turns instinctively. And we all have that. We all kind of have that sixth sense sometimes where we sense that someone's behind her. So she turns instinctively and she goes smack dab into Jesus. Now, again, this is not what she's expecting. She's not expecting, to find Jesus, there. She's figuring that his body's been stolen, and here he is standing before, but she doesn't get it. She doesn't see it. So she assumes him to be the gardener. Again, and her grief outweighs everything else, and she assumes him to be the gardener. And Jesus asks the same thing. Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for? Same thing the angels ask. Why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for? Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for? And she thinks that he's the gardener. If you've taken him away, then please tell me where, and I'll deal with this. I don't want anybody to be burdened by my Lord and Savior. I want to deal with him. I want to love him and care for him and do the last bit for him. That's what she's saying. So if you've taken him away, tell me where he is, and I'll deal with it. And again, her grief is not allowing her to see that she's actually talking to the one that she is grieving about. She's actually talking to the one that she's weeping over, until he says her name, until he speaks to her directly. And it is in the saying of the name that her grief is shattered by a deeper memory, a deeper understanding. When Jesus says her name, all of the times that Jesus spoke her name comes flooding back, and she's able to understand or grasp that this is actually Jesus, that this is actually the one that she is looking for and grieving over, that what he talked about is actually true. He is back from the dead. And that is extraordinarily powerful for the sake of what is moving forward, that Jesus is actually back from the dead. So immediately, she goes from, sir, if you've carried him away, tell me where you've laid him, and I will take him away. Her grief, her mourning, her pain, all of that is washed away when she looks upon Jesus and sees that it, in fact, is him. She sees that it is, in fact, the Savior, the Lord. Her grief is gone. Rabboni, teacher, friend, Lord, all of those things are gone. They're all taken away when Jesus speaks her name. So this is where it's at. This is what is taking place. Mary her grief is gone, and she clings to him. Rabboni, teacher. Jesus says, don't hold on to me because I have not yet ascended to the Father. We're not done yet. I know you don't want to let me go. I know you've suffered this incredible loss. You've suffered this incredible pain. And I know that you just want to grasp this, but don't hold on to me because we're not done yet. We're not finished yet. There are still things left to do. I have not ascended to my Father. I have not finished the mission, the journey, the task. So go and tell my brothers, tell them that I'm not done yet. Tell them that I'm not finished. Tell them that I still have work left to do and that I will do it. Tell them this. Go and tell them. And that's what Mary is sent to do. She goes to tell them. Go to my brothers and say to them, I'm ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. I'm not staying here. This is not a finishing point. I am going to be going to God. I am going to be going to the Father. Tell them that so that they know, so that you know, so that I know. Tell them that, and that way then I will be able to fulfill my mission. I will be able to finish what it is that I'm supposed to do. So Jesus makes it clear that, that the resurrection, where he's at, this is a really good thing, but it's not finished yet. So he's telling the disciples, he's telling Mary to go off and inform the disciples of everything that she's seen. Make it clear that he's risen from the dead. This is awesome. Woohoo, great. And that there's more to come, that ascension will happen afterwards. This is only kind of the beginning of the resurrection text, the resurrection story. There's so much more that is going to open up. I mean, this is just the morning of the first day of the week. So I'm going to leave it here for now. And, we're going to leave with Jesus telling Mary to go. She goes, she tells them all the things that he had told her, all the things that he had said. So she goes and reveals to the disciples that Jesus is risen. So John sees the linen wrappings. Peter goes in. Mary sees the angels. Then she runs into Jesus, and she gets this incredible proclamatory moment, this incredible moment where Jesus tells her what's going on. And so she then supports that, celebrates that, and moves forward from there. So I'm going to leave it here so that we can pick up more next time. As always, my contact information is going to come up at the end of the session. I'd love to, if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to me. Anything I can help with, I'll get back to you, or I'll include it in the next session. However it works, but I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening, as always, and we'll talk to you next time.